Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Nature Folklore Sessions. It's 13th of February, 2022. Well, thank you all for joining me. It's our weekly time of exploring nature-centered folklore, connecting this to your favorite sanctuary space and expressing inspired visions from your sanctuary through your poetry, writing, art, craft, performance, and problem solving. And so today it's part 3 of our Imbolc series. It's part 1 of a 2-part She series. So we're going to be got the corner shiga in the background and just to get us into the feel of it there. And we're actually going to start with Imbolc related features that I couldn't fit in last Sunday because it was a busy time last Sunday. Today we got guest Sandra Parker with a delightful fairy song, Glenda Simeno, who's got some delightful late Imbolc words, and Tony Cookson, who's trying to set up in the background. There was a bit of silence, so I hope we've got sound, and I hope you got sound, because just before coming on the air, I was trying to get sound from Tony, and he's got a Selkie song that's right up in our fairy realm topic for today. So here's some of these characters anyway. I didn't show you, did I? There you go. There's Sandra Parker, Glenda Semino, who's coming on, and there's Tony Cookson there. The Hush of Fairies are sleeping, and we've also got Claire Roach, who's got a fitting poem there's a song of a Fae folklore tradition that I'll be talking about in good time. So these Nature Folklore session videos, the Tree Sanctuary support, all brought to you due to the support of our appreciated subscribers, and I highly appreciate these subscribers and PayPal donators, because it keeps the show on the air and covers the expenses. And some subscribers, several subscribers, are watching each week, either live or later in the evening, or whatever suitable for them. So thank you for the continued support. As I say, that's why I'm here. So let's see what early birds we have greeting us today. Who's joined us already today? Cliff Carr's around. Afternoon from a wet Wirral. Is a very wet Karakori as well. Extremely wet. And it's cleared up now. Susan Samuel. Hi, John. Good to see you looking well. That's great. And I just realized I never got myself a glass of water. So excuse the froggy throat for the time being. I think it's Operation Get Rid of Froggy Throat for the first bit now. And I'll be with you in a second. I was kind of dealing with last minute issues, as we do in this show before we go on the air. It's never that straightforward. So it's lovely that you're with us, which is fantastic. And there's some background scenes going on here with Tony. We'll test him out later anyway. Hopefully he is live and we're going to have him. So let's get on with the show here. That we have. I was going to cover a bit on goddesses, including breeder, but I didn't fit that in last Sunday. Let's get us into the theme of that. I'm also, one thing I didn't cover last Sunday was foraging, so I'm going to do a little bit on foraging that I didn't have time for. And I might get time to share my quickening poem and chat a bit about that. But first, we got our first guest. We're going to roll and set the scene. Sandra Parker, who was live with us last year. And she's got the album out, Call of the Fairy. And so there she is, very appropriate, of course, for that. And somewhere here, I've got a video of Sandra Parker, who's actually singing the title track, Call of the Fairy. So let's just get into the mood with that right now. So it's Call of the Fairy, and hopefully you're all hearing nicely. Sandra Parker.
Fairy, title track. Will you follow me out in the moonlight? Will you follow me to the top of the hill? Though most don't believe, to those who are listening, I am calling still. And the stars shine down and the moon is high. The night wind whispers a lullaby, and the things you think are important now will fade away in the magic of the night. Then will you follow me out in the moonlight? Will you follow me to the top of the hill? Though most don't believe, to those who are listening, I am calling still. Oh, I am now as I was then, a legend in the hearts and the minds of men, standing just beyond the shimmering mist, playing fairy music till the dawn. Oh, will you follow me out in the moonlight? Will you follow me to the top of the hill? Though most don't believe, to those who are listening, I am calling still. I am calling still. I am calling still. Oh, take my hand and go with me. There are still many things you have yet to see, and you'll never know if you won't let go. And I'll be waiting till you hear me call your name. Then will you follow me out in the moonlight? Will you follow me to the top of the hill? Though most don't believe, to those who are listening, I am calling still. 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 I hope you find some fairy magic today and every day.
Lovely. It's great to have had Sandra Parker back with that. And it was recording this time, but absolutely beautiful, wonderful it is. And Glenda's here, who's going to be a guest shortly. A fabulous song. Loved it from Dublin. Barbara, who's with Tony Cookson, who's coming on soon. She's tuning in from Dowra there up in Cavan. And Shell Gooch is here. If I can get the comment up. Good day. Nice to see you. And nice to have you aboard with us, Shell, as well. And Claire Roach is in the cottage here. So good to see you. And Susan Samuel, I saw something here. There we go. And Cleese, I didn't say hello. There we go. Davina's, she's on. And good morning from Virginia. And Claire, love that from Sandra. Simply magical. Yes, absolutely great. Terrific there. Now, of course, I can't get through the Imbolc time without some reference or even some reverence for goddesses. And there are some people, especially women's groups, who visit Ireland they come here from all over the world just to meet the goddesses. And if you do a Google search for Irish goddesses or Celtic goddesses, you'll find quite a collection. and many with names you've probably not heard of. But there may well be a goddess or two after you read about them, when you Google them, that you suddenly feel, this is the goddess I want to track down and find out more about and actually work with and live with. But maybe it's me being a man. I question what image does a goddess manifest for the woman seeker, especially the pilgrim who comes here on the pilgrimage and they actually find that. So it's a great thing to put in the comments there. What do you think on that? And even what the images are for men, of course. You know, it could be something like that. And thinking of goddesses, it's a very relevant topic for this point of Imbolc, as I say, because I feel the imagery of this time, it's still of the underground. When a lot of the goddess, when we talk about them, we're really going on, but we're talking about what's actually going on beneath us, the goddesses of the earth. And I'm thinking of the imagery of the dark underworld being a womb. And I'm clicking the wrong things there. And the womb is taking in lots of water, especially this time of year, to nourish and incubate, and especially today here. And it's all nourishing, all this water is nourishing, incubating new life that's going to be ready for this warming cycle that's coming soon. Now, this is wonderful relating imagery for women who have been mothers, of course. There's very much you can relate to from your motherhood, as far as the motherhood of the earth goes, I feel. And of course, for women who've not been mothers too, not mothers of human babies anyway, often by choice. And we can use nuns as an example. That's what they do in a way. I'm thinking of how nuns tend to spend a lot of their time, a lot of their lives, tending to gardens and woodlands. Absolutely beautiful what they do, their application to that. And so they're living as midwives to nature's birthing, out in the gardens, out in the woods. And it's growing as well. And also the nuns tend to bees, don't they? And they tend to the plants to pollinate for the bees. So amazing stewardness and connection that they have. And that reminds me, it was St. Godmother's Day last Friday, a saint of bees and honey. And it's interesting noting that the Gaelic, or the old Gaelic, the old Gaelic, and the modern Gaelic too, the word for honeycomb is Finamala. Sorry, I haven't got the spelling up in. I should put that in the notes. But Finamala is strange spelling anyway. But this is describing the sockets that bees enter into to make honey. And there's fun with this, saying that the Finamala also means vagina. Well, that's not quite right, actually. There's a lot of memes going around especially on Facebook about this. It still means, Fina still means socket, but wouldn't surprise me if that did get twisted to today's word of fanny. Fina, fanny. Anyway, mind you, this may have given a whole new meaning to that blues song. If you know it, Stones did it, King Bee. I'm a king bee. I'm a king bee, baby, buzzing around your hive. Yes, I can make honey, baby. Let me come inside. So maybe maybe the Fina Valor is related in that way. Maybe that was the inspiration. It was a B.B. King who wrote that anyway. Maybe that was the inspiration to that line. Right, back to the nuns. Let's not forget the nuns are also involved in brewing projects, especially mead, which involves honey. And on YouTube these days, there are channels of women. This amuses me, I find. There's a lot of YouTube channels there, very goddess themed. And some of the women with these channels, they say they're guided by a goddess. Certainly is a great form of inspiration. We encourage that with being in your tree sanctuary. And the inspiration you may feel comes through the image that you have for goddesses and working with a goddess. But some of them on these channels, it seems they even claim they are the human manifestation of a goddess, which I'm intrigued about. And though I may humor this in a malish kind of way, I can't really knock this, because imagine if all people or at least the women, imagine they were goddesses in their application, especially if they went into their application of gardening, land care, woodland, wildlife. If this is the imagery that drives them, what an amazing, peaceful, balanced planet we would have, wouldn't we? That we'd be living on. So I'm not sure what goddess would be the manifestation of creating the servers and digital code for the YouTube channel. So that's another question as well. But I tend to think much of the goddess connection thing as being quite theatrical. And of course, people familiar with me, I love the theatre stuff as well. And we've got a guest today who's sort of very connected to theatre. So it can be amazing theatre, all this, all these cloaks, dresses, the ones that get caught up in thorns and carrying skulls and amazing crafted staffs. And there's got to be a frame drum or two added as well. And I love all this because it's usually the best of theatre. And because it's when the actors and actresses, they actually become the parts that they are playing in this. So when you become those parts, of course, amazing, enchanting magic happens. And the goddesses become as real as anything else that we may regard as real on this planet. And do you agree with me on that one? Anyway, for me, I feel this enchantment will learn a lot more through the she folklore. And we've had Sandra Parker give a little bit of an illustration similar to this. And I look forward to sharing some of this during this afternoon, and also through next Sunday's Nature Folklore, which is going to be closer to the water. Anyway, this is the season of Imbolc still, the womb of the earth filling with water. And that's a bit of an artist representation of that. And the water as well, it releases fresh gelated water out through the sacred springs that we know as the holy wells generally. And there are common stories told of this time of the goddess breeder, or Bridget even, that's manifested through the woman that's known as St. Bridget. And the abbesses of Kildare that followed her. They may have also been named Bridget as well, because last Sunday I suggested that at the time of Bridget, the Bridget name may not have actually existed, especially a Bridget or a breeder name for a goddess. It might not have existed at that time of her life. And I do believe these names, they were applied later, applied by later storytellers, certainly by the scribes during the medieval time. And why not? As those words and names, they beautifully tell the story. And I believe through this cycle of nature folklore stories, we do have a background connecting thread that I come back to of the kayak, the hag, the crone, and from the kayak, hag, crone, passing the mantle of regenerated life into this new spring womb. And so it's into the capable realm of this new life of the nursing and nature midwifing goddesses through this Imbolc and spring. And that's what I think most people vision as Bridget or breeder or breege. Now, having these clear theatrical visions, it does seem to help us. I believe this helps us understand things a lot more clearly than trying to study some linear science or references to books which are written in linear ways. I love the use of imagination and theatre because I think it gives us a cyclical approach to this sort of thing. To me, it's like seeing the whole picture rather than lines of reasoning. I think when we read stuff, it can be lines of reasoning. Though reading can set off it does set off the inspiration as well. But to say goddess breeder does not exist, I feel, is a bit like saying Santa doesn't exist. You imagine that, a child who doesn't believe in Santa, they may not get any presents, may they? Breeder, and look what comes to you, all this magic. I know Santa's an awful consumable example to bear with, but I'm lacking a better example at the moment of talking about this. Anyway, at this time of Imbolc, through using whatever you use, breeder, breege, Bridget, the goddess vision, I think we can have a clear beautiful and encouraging understanding that we can focus more on, and we can follow what we may call the goddess traditions that we've been inspired with, something like that. It's a good imagery. We can follow the life crafts and teachings of some breeder of the eternal flame. But I think it's more important for the reverence of the water. I kind of think, we have the breeder day with the eternal flame, but for this time, to me, it's reverence of the healing water. The water is very much the theme after the winter for this month and the sacred wells. Anyway, I've rambled quite a bit. Have I got another bit of well stuff? That's a pool in a well. I love that picture. Very nice. Right, let's see. Comments. There's stuff being said here. Kate Cloud Sparks is about lovely goddess art this morning. Siobhan McMahon is here. Fantastic. Lovely to see you. Candice Rainbow Owl is around. Good morning from New York City. Is that North Carolina? And Cathal here. Matrina's here. Good afternoon. Good morning, everyone. Our wonderful poet, Cathal. And that's interesting. Kate Chaos. Good morning. And then, B says she is the land. Very much of the land. As I say, this is where the visionary comes in. I tend to think very much related to the water, but certainly the land itself, the underground, as I was mentioning, and that being the womb right now. Glenda's got something here. Goddess of the internet. Maybe the Greek goddess Iris. There's been a lot of chat with that, people putting posts, especially on the mythical groups on Facebook in the last week. Is Bridget related to Artemis? Is Bridget related to various Roman, Greek, and even Middle Eastern and Egyptian goddesses? And I feel, yes, you go around the world, and this is why I'm saying people seeking for goddesses, the stories are going to be the same about the birthing from the underground, but the stories, the content, the characters, and the settings might be different. And people say, no, did the story come from, say, Egypt or Greece? Did it come over with the Romans, say, and over to here? There's a bit of that emergence, but there wasn't they didn't have Facebook. They didn't have high-speed communications. It would have been slow. So I don't think one came to the other. If there was bards moving about, they might add a little bit of pepper on the stories that existed. But funnily enough, I think they're all very much related to the birth, the water filling the womb underground of the earth, and all the stuff that's going to be coming up. And I think I brought in foraging a bit later to kind of try and make this a little bit clear, gives a sort of a practical hand on this. Anyway, Glenda, talking about Glenda Smino, she's here in the audience. She's a writer, director, actress, I gather. Beaver Row Heritage is the troupe that she does theatre with. Seems to filmmaking. They seem to have had success with One Night in Dublin, which is a film. And she's even been with Podge and Rog on the Podge and Rog show. They did a series, A Scare at Bedtime, and she was actually one of the cast of one of their stories as Eva Brownstein. Anyway, Glenda's poem is about being beside a Bridget as well. And it's a privilege that we've got Glenda's video with us today. And it's recorded and she's in the audience with us today. Maybe we'll get her live at some point. Anyway, I'm going to track down the video. And there must be a video here somewhere. There we go. Glenda Semino and her poem.
Hi, I'm going to read you a poem I wrote in 1974. St. Bridget's Well, Liscannor, County Clare. Bridget stands, a blue figure in a telephone booth against the weather, winding stone steps to a graveyard beside her. Below, Ireland spreads the green and gold folds of her wild skirts to the sea. In the lime-washed grotto, statuettes line the wall on a high wooden shelf. Gone out of use now, a woman comments briskly. You and I stand curiosity-struck among the faithful, rigid as the testimonial crutches of the healed. Drink of these waters and you will never die of cancer, an old man explains, offering to me the much-used sacred cup. I hesitate, then lift it to my pagan mouth, sip the murky, tepid water, tasting of moss and age and underground passages. Outside, a girl steps lightly past the well, carrying 2 pails of frothy milk. Thank you. Now, let's go back to films. Film. Where is
Right, got lost. Oh, I hope you actually heard that okay, because I noticed the signal went right down. It's back again. So I hope you got that. Thank you, Glenda, and I hope you came across clear, because the signal went down for a minute or so there. So thank you anyway, Glenda Semino, former Pod and Roger, and wonderful films to come, and I look forward to more from Glenda as we come on. And what's saying? And Lynn Gallagher says, hi John, nobody's complaining about the signal, so that must have come across loud and clear. That's great. Cliff Carr's watching the garden. Doves, sparrows, starlings, crows, and even the magpies are busy today. Anyway, I'm going to go on to the foraging, and perhaps that will relate to what we're saying. Wonderful poem, says B somewhere here. Yes, clear. B's saying wonderful poem. No, her message is not coming up. Sorry about that. There we go. Wonderful poem, Glenn. The sound was perfect. Fantastic. Now the signal is going down now, so it must be the turbulence in the weather. So I hope everything's okay. And then Castle, beautiful writing, Glenda. Thank you for reading it. And Claire says she heard it very well. So I hope things are going okay. As I say, I've gone back into low signal again. Anyway, I'll carry on and pursue the foraging as well. So anyway, foraging through February. I didn't cover this last Sunday, and it seems appropriate, I think, as a follow-up for all this wonderful thing that's bubbling up in the womb of the earth and coming up. Because at this time of year, we may get a spot of sun, and even a spot of dryness. And then there's the urgency that we might feel, okay, it's gardening time. Come on, let's dig up the soil and get the seeds in, get planting. But the trouble with doing that now is far too early, in this area anyway, because the soil is still very cold. Let nature do its magic a bit more. It needs a bit more work before we can interfere with it. And also, excuse me, there's a lot of wildlife there. They're still hibernating under the fallen leaves and the debris. They're still protecting themselves from the exposure of the cold, because funnily enough, I think it's a couple of days ago, it's our lowest average temperature of the year was only a couple of days ago. So it is a little bit early. So they know, and we got a low point coming up, I think, next week as well. So what's happening is we're getting the first bold appearances of new life, of course, and there are things that are appearing that we can eat. And I think it's very important to do this responsibly. We never take it all when we go foraging because it's there. There's a horrible trend at the moment that chefs are wanting to be unique with their dishes, and they're paying good money for forest food. And that's becoming damaging. I think there's one example, Epping Forest in England. There's just so many species of plants have disappeared because of money grabbing foraging. So you don't do that. And what I was taught as a child when we went out foraging is you only take a little bit of what's around. You take a small part, just samples for yourself, because of different reasons. Other people are going to come along and they'll want a bit, and also the animals as well. Plus the plants have got to regenerate themselves. If you take it all, you're not going to have anything to forage the next year. So it's all about personal conscience and management. Just be careful with that. Leave some for the wildlife and other humans, and say plants regeneration. But by taking a forage donation for personal eating, that's not a problem, of course. So here's a small selection of what we got here in Ireland, and it might be around where you are. and it's worth doing a bit of responsible foraging. It may well be in your garden as well, some of these. And there's some nice plants when I was a child, because even though they're fresh plants, some of them were still a little bit bitter. So we throw them in with the potatoes and make a sort of a mineral-rich cold cannon. Or we'd put some into the bread, especially soda bread, or into cheese scones. It's nice throwing these plants in there. Or, of course, eat some raw as you explore the treasure. So let's see what we got. I've got a few things. I'm not going to do everything that's available. And I know one of the lovely things at this time is ash seeds. And they're generally, they're all sort of toasty. And let's see if I can get them. There we go. There we go. That's ash seeds there. Raw. You can have them raw or just cook them up, roast them. They're very nice. And then burdock. That's an easy one. Raw and cooked. They can be used. And if you don't know what the burdock looks like, that's what it looks like round about now. They have those sort of round thistly tops. You'll find them like that. But when they're in flower, this is what they look like. So keep an eye where the burdocks are. The leaves are pretty much a giveaway, and so those tops are. But you can clean them up and you can kind of scrape them like you do with ginger. They're pretty tasty. And if you try them, it's very good if you get a cough, which is what I should. Oh, here's a favorite. Cleavers. Cleavers, you might know as goosegrass. Great. You can have those raw. But cooked, I think cooked you might like a sort of kind of scented spinach in a way. And then daisy leaf, those you can have raw and cooked. And the daisy leaf is running away with me here. Ground elder is another one. And you have the leaves raw and cooked. Careful, you maybe need someone to show you ground elder because you can pick the wrong stuff there. That's what it's like when it's in flowers. Honesty root, you may have these in garden. I haven't got any of the roots, but there they are when they're green, and then they dry out into those beautiful discs, and the roots of those are pretty good as well. Meadowsweet root as well, but check out during the meadowsweet flowering time where they are, so you know what they are, because it's too easy to pick up something that's poisonous. But the roots don't look so attractive, but they are quite tasty. And that's you can cook those up as well. Oxide Daisy, that's another one here. You can have the leaves and the shoots. That's quite easy to recognize. There's another picture of what they look like from the distance, the leaves there. Primroses, you get a lot of those around right now. The leaves, pretty good raw. A lot of people put mix in primrose leaves with their salads this time of year. And you can cook them up as well and put them with everything. And then if you go, saxifrage, that's another one as well. You might find your way. Patrick's cabbage, I think, is the other, it's called as Patrick's cabbage. There you go. That's another one because it's around at this time. So cook those leaves, very good as well. And then if you go down the shore, the sea beets. Raw and cooked with those as well, and also the sea purslane, or you might know it as samphire, and that's that one there. And there's a close-up of what the leaf looks like. They're good raw and cooked as well. And shepherd's purse, that's another one. That's you can eat the leaves and the rosettes with that raw and cooked. And a favorite, and certainly plenty around, is the garlic leaves, the ransoms, the wild garlic leaves. Very popular, cooked, and even before the flowers come up. And they're always in abundance when you find those. You probably know where they are right now anyway. Yarrow leaves. There's a reminder. Garlic, if you're not sure, that's what it looks like in flower, and they're tasty. I love cooking fish with those as a flavoring with the flowers, and it looks fantastic. Yarrow, not so easy to find at this time of year. Not so easy to get on the screen either. But if you can find them, be careful with them. Leaves raw and cooked, but if you look around for them now, they're more or less thinned out like that. I know in the garden here, they're pretty much like that at the moment. So, of course, you don't forage heavily there because the yarrow is so useful for your own medicine later on. And then, of course, there's young nettles. hawthorn buds right now. Chickweed, our children, and I love the chickweed. It can get a little bit stringy, so you got to get this as it comes out. That's another one. But the thing with chickweed, you got to be very careful because there's one that looks like chickweed radium, and that's highly poisonous. So again, perhaps you should have someone show you the chickweed, and then when you know where it is, you'll have complete confidence in it. But there is similarities you see from the leaves. So have someone guide you with the chickweed to make sure. Otherwise, that's a joy. It's one of my favorites. And then when you buy the sea, I like the dulse as well, the dillis. And the favorite of all is the sea spaghetti. When you get that hanging on the rocks, that's a wonderful thing to forage, especially at this time of year when cold and wintry. And then if I'm trying to get my dish up here, there's the controls. There we go. And that's it. That's the sort of dish you make, maybe with a bit of fish. Absolutely delicious to steam that and eat that. But I prefer it to regular spaghetti. I really do. Now, all of this stuff, it comes from this man. I mean, the information I've got you. There is, I haven't, I'll put it in the comments later on, but that's eatweeds.co.uk. If you go to eatweeds.co.uk, you get all of that stuff from Robin Harford. He's very generous. There's so much free information he gives on his website. But if you can support him, he has everything, books, courses, blah, blah, blah. Eatweeds.co. That's it. That's the foraging. And anyway, we're gonna. I think I'm gonna put the earplugs on now, and let's see. This is the moment of truth. Our one very live guest, Tony Cookson, who's Tony is a wonderful storyteller. He very often came along to our Bards in the Woods when we had those from 2012 to 18. He was here at the cottage at Carrowcrory when we had the Words and Harp days. I think that's the first time I saw you perform, Tony. And with his wife, B. Smith, who's a lovely regular here, they have projects with the prisoners and fantastic work there. And Tony's performed at a few festivals as well. So let's see if we've got Tony on the air because we were having trouble getting him. Hello, Tony. Have we got a voice?
Hello, John. Let me move into the center. I'm here.
Looking good, Jess.
Can you see me? John?
I can certainly see you okay. You can see
you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me and see me?
I can hear you. I can hear you. The thing is, can you hear me?
You can see me. We've got something going here.
Yeah, can you hear me? It looks like you can't hear me. Oh,
no, I can't hear you. Yeah.
Oh, great. Oh, brilliant. There. Yeah, sorry to keeping you waiting so long there.
No. I've been waiting.
And I know you've been working on a wonderful song for quite some time. Tell us about it. What have you been working on? It's very related to what we're going to be doing here.
Now, people, I don't know if you know this. This is going to be a world premiere, premiere rendition of a song that you may not know. I thought I'd do this song because it has to do with water. And the name of the song is called The Great Silky of Skulskerry. Now, a silky is a changeling from mythology. So really what a silky is a seal who lives out in the sea but comes to land as a man. And usually he has his way with a young maiden, and then he returns to the sea. It's a bit like a man on commitment. He runs. So I've been working on this song, and it is a Scottish song. So there's some Scottish words in it, and I'm going to tell you what they are so that it's you know that I'm singing in dialect rather than in English. So one of the phrases is "Ba Lily Ween," and that means a hurling, lovely child. Reminds me of myself when I was young, a hurling, lovely child. I think that's really all I need. Oh yeah, this is about a wet nurse who has a child, and the father is a silkie. So rather than tell you all about it, let's sing about it. Yeah. So this is called the Great Silkie of Skolskeri. A family nurse, she sits and sings, and as she sings, "Ba Lily Ween, can I Burns father, far less than land in which he dwells, and he has come to her bed, and a grumbly guest, I'm sure was he, said, here am I, thy Burns father, though I am not so common. I am a man upon the land, I am a silkie upon the sea, and when I am far from every strand, my home it is in Skolskeri. And he has taken a purse of gold, and he has placed it upon her knee, saying, give to me my little young son, and take ye up your nurse's feet. And it shall come, and it shall come to pass on the summer's day, when the sun shines warm on every stone, I will take my little young son, teach him how to swim the pond. And you shall marry a gunner blood, and a right fine gunner, I'm sure he'll be, from the very first shot that ever he'll shoot will kill both me, my young sonnen. Och killbog mig Jungsonnen. So there you have the song, The Great Silky of Skull Scary. Unfortunate ending. Thanks for that, John.
And thank you. You certainly made it your own. That's brilliant. We don't get you often. So that was a bit of a treat. Thanks very much. And we'll be talking a bit about Selkies next week again as well. But thank you for that, Tony. We'll get you back with a story again as soon as we can. So thanks
That'd
for
be great.
came through with the sound. Thanks. We'll see you again. All the best, Tony. Great. Brilliant. A bit of Tony there, and Cliff Carr. Enjoyed that beautiful song. Thanks for sharing, and of course being live. That it was spectacular too. Going back to the foraging, Kate Cloud Park says, "Never take the first, never take the last. Take no more than half." I don't think it's set rule, but I was generally told 1 in 8. You know, obviously you're not going to go to a forage area and say, "Right, I've got 1. Right, you 7, you're okay." But that was roughly what I was told. Is 1. Anyway, back to Tony. Claire Roach says you're brilliant, and B too. And Terry Slack Hardwick, who's here. Good for the soul to hear, Tony. Beautiful as always, dear heart. Brilliant. There is a lot of Tony fans out there, so glad to have a moment of Tony. Brilliant, wonderful. Well, now here we go. It's just 1:45, and I'm now going to get started on discovering the she. And the she does not seem to be a word that's been tampered with much over the centuries. So we're quite native with this one, which is very good. So we'll get on with the she. I think folklore has been tampered with a lot when printing came out. The printing presses became a lot cheaper during the early 19th century. And there were a lot of small business printers that started springing up, and I think I've got a small printed business person here. Oh no, I've got a broadsheet seller. There we go. And this is how people used to get this stuff. They would buy the scripts. They would buy these printed broadsheets, and they would have the stories on them. They have the old songs, because there wasn't investigative journalism. When the printers came along, they had to have stuff to sell. They sold cards and messages. And they sold a lot of the traditions, songs and play acting scripts, folk drama, that type of stuff. And they would have the stories. So that's where they would get them. So that changed things around. And the folklore was told a bit different when it got to the printers. Because obviously, just like printers do today in the newspapers, they write stories that's going to sell them newspapers, not stories that are factual. No, can't do that. They've got to be sensational so people buy the newspaper and believe in all that stuff. So unfortunately, it was the same with the folklore when the printers came about. But she has held their own. I suppose another example is when we go and see a film, go and see a movie that's interpreted from a book. And it ends up being very different, doesn't it? It's often much more sensationalized than the book. And there might be just a line or two in the book that might be just exciting. And then the movie makes it very exciting and it becomes like a quarter of the movie, that type of stuff. I think in movies, it's part of the director's ego and also the anticipation of increasing film distribution. And it's all about profits, of course, by increasing viewers' interest, get more viewers hooked, and then you make greater profits. Anyway, from this new printed paper era, the new Celtic romanticism culture started up in the 19th century. Groups formed. They met in homes and small halls. They tried to reenact the stories, reinterpreted the printed material. And many of us think of the she today as another way of saying fairy folk. And here's some fairy folk there. And I've got into a habit of that interpretation as well. And I think that came out of the Romantic era as well. And then the internet, with the internet, media gets accelerated. It's been incredibly accelerated. And then that reinterpreted folklore in the dot-com boom of the 90s. And then that's become much faster now with the social media, much faster revolution in the way stories have changed, reinterpreted, altered than whatever happened during the 19th century broadsheets there. So this reinterpretation has become a lot faster these days. It's moved from websites to blogs to slicker, faster sound bites on social media. So let's have an attempt to step back to the Sidhe before there was any printing, to the Sidhe at the time maybe of when there was the medieval scribing. And I'm especially thinking of that age from the 5th century to the 15th century, which was the highlight of the medieval scribing time. And this was when the Sidhe, perhaps the word Sidhe was more describing a mound, like the one I've got. Oh, well, if my mouse would actually let me do the thing. That picture behind me, there we go, corner Sidhe. And I've disappeared for a moment. That's the mound that you see from here. In fact, I think I might change. We've had that out for a while. I'm going to change my background to another virtual background. Let's see what we can have to give you another fairy one. This is quite a popular one. This is Knocknashee. And there we go. That's Hill of the Fairies, Knocknashee. So maybe that's an appropriate one for me to speak over now. And ancient language was not focused on things, as I often say, but the language was focused on what was going on, what was the active condition of what was going on. And she was not a word that actually mentioned mound. She doesn't mean mound, but it would describe what was going on in the mound. So many people are familiar, and most of you watching this be familiar with the mythology of the Tuatha De Danann, who were nicknamed the fairy race, half human, half fairy race. And that's the way the storytellers seem to have told about them for at least a couple of thousand years, probably. And there was a race that made a pact with the invading Malaysians, and that pact with the Malaysians was that the Malaysians would rule above the ground, while the Tuatha De Danann would rule the underworld. And do I have some underworld Tuatha De Danann? Oh, no, that's them, I think, just thinking about getting into the underworld. That's an awfully simplistic description of what is really a very long and profound story. But regular Nature Folklore viewers will know that I dip into fragments of that extended story quite frequently as we cycle around the year. And there are places that we're familiar with, or maybe familiar with, where it said the Tuatha De Danann is said to have entered the underground, the fairy hills of Ireland. What we got here? I've got a few. We got the Knocknashee behind me there. Let's knock me out to get a full view of that. There you go. I've gone, and there's Knocknashee, Knocknarea outside Sligo. That's on the top there. That's a massive one. What else we got? We got Knockninny here, which is up in the County Cavan. Well, it's actually over into is into Fermanagh there, just over the border. So that's Knockninny, which is a beautiful area as well. Then soon after the Tuatha De Danann were underground, the Malaysians discovered they couldn't farm very well, not as well as the Danann people did. So it seemed the Malaysians perhaps were forest people. They weren't farmers. And somehow the forests of Ireland were not sustaining them. I don't know why. Anyway, some of the stories tell there was a balance deal between the underworld Tuatha De Danann and with the Malaysians, and from the underground they would fertilize the underground roots to ensure there'd be good yields in the sun above the ground. So it seems to be that from the legend, the stories of the Sidhe, the Fey world, and the fairies underground have evolved. And they've probably been told 2,000, 3,000 years at least. And we're told stories that tell that amongst these beings, there are spirit entities in the underworld. And let's show some of the images of that now. We have the Ishi. No, I haven't got a spirit of the Ishi. I'll come up with that in a minute. Anyway, Ishi, they're the Fae spirits that live underground, and they're the ones that live within the Fae mounds. I'm going back to I'm going to show off this one because I think I like this corner Shiga that's behind us. So there we go. The Ishi, that's they live underground within the She mounds, and I think I've got a spelling for that somewhere here. What I'm trying to talk about. There we go. Ishi, that's how you spell it. And that's how I'm saying it on the right. There we go. There's a few spellings. You can put an E instead of that O. But there's no exact spelling on that. But in the Liber Gabala Aaron, the Book of Invasions, this was scribed about 11th century. But it's not clear who actually scribed it, but there we go, Book of Invasions, there we go, there's a bit of it there. It looks like, like the Bible, the Book of Invasions, it's been through several translations, and there's a more modern version there, and I think each translation changes the meanings according to the agenda of the scribes and eventually the printers. So the Liber Gabala Aaron, it's still the main source. It's still our archive source of the Tuatha De Danann, the Firbolgs, the Fomorians, the Milesians' arrival, and the various lifestyles on the island here that's become Ireland. Now, modern scholars, they actually question, was there even Milesians in the first place? There's a lot of... regarding that was pure folklore, but that's another matter for another time. Milesians might be a simplified term to cover a bunch of tribes that were arriving onto this island at the time. But talking about Milesians, it simplifies it for storytelling. Much like line of thinking, I suppose, with Mary, Joseph, and Jesus. And I do believe that's a simplified trim down of what was really a large family, or even a small tribe that perhaps had a bit of a shamanic heritage, but it was brought down to Mary, Joseph, and Jesus to make it easier to tell the stories. Anyway, I'm wondering again. Let's get back to the Liber Gabala Aaron, and in there's the reference there to the Dinshi. There we go. Do I have a picture? I should have. No, I don't have a picture of them. But these are the spirits of our ancestors, anyway. The Dinshi, there's our ancestors. And they've said to return to Earth. And they're said to be the spirits of all nature that are connected to the loyal a queen goddess. Anyway, that all reads like spirits from a beehive, doesn't it? And like the beehive, the story is inspired by the Liber Gabala Aaron. They're kind of a parallel with the world on Earth. Let's see. Oh, there we go. I got some images here that I put up. There's the entrance there. That's just a visionary entrance into the goddess there. But thinking of the parallel world on Earth, that's the trackway up of Knocknashee. So I thought that was a good image, going up to the mound and meeting up with the parallel world that's with the Earth. Just a funny bit of imagery. Anyway, they say that's that parallel Earth is where these spirits, if my mouse would just let go, I'm going to have to work out how to stop it sticking like that. Anyway, but say that the spirits emerge from the she mounds, and there's always, thinking, going back to the imagery, I've lost it again, but the corner Shiga, let's go back to that, beehive. There you go. There's our local beehive. Imagine the spirits emerging from that, buzz, 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 and they mingle amongst us, and maybe they're pollinating amongst us as well. And there's a pollinating fairy picture there. I think it's absolutely brilliant for that imagery. Anyway, it makes more interesting, doesn't it? That tells we talk about the mischief and trickery and deeds, and I've lost the picture I wanted to show for that, but never mind, it might come up again. But sadly, to make the stories more interesting, there's a lot of focus on mischief and trickery deeds by storytellers. Now it won't go away. Sadly, this can lead into fear-mongering storytelling, which can be a problem, and that's not good. As I feel that fear-mongering, if you're fear-mongering of nature itself, that can be discouraging. I think we need to encourage that nature is, is safe. It is our spiritual home. There's sort of discouragement, get out of nature and start worshipping within stone churches rather than out in the woods. There's been a kind of a lot of fear-mongering over the years for that, to get people into the churches and out of their meeting places within the woods. So retelling of the stories, I think, have been put fear into them. The fairies are very dangerous. The she are very dangerous. I've got an example of that coming up where that's been twisted. But as I say, out of these stories, there's the she, beautiful. Now, there, I thought I'd have a picture. There we go. That's a nice artist's impression of the she. That are beautiful, of the people of the Sidhe Realm. But also, I said they're the most temperamental. They can be very fierce guardians of fairy forts, hawthorn trees, chieftain trees, and the sacred holy well. So this is where the fear-mongering comes in. But perhaps the best known retaliation is the Stolen Child story by the Sidhe. And it's a story of the changelings, a story where healthy boy babies are swapped with sickly, unhealthy babies in the middle of the night. And the story has been made famous by W.B. Yeats. You're probably very familiar with this. There you go, they come away a human child to the waters and the wild. And perhaps I tend to regard W.B. Yeats as the leader of the Celtic Romantics. He really got the trend going, didn't he? And I think at this point is... let's get Claire Roach onto this. Claire Roach, she's applied the W.B. Yeats poem, Stolen Child, to glorious music. As I say, she's here, Claire Roach, my famous partner for many years now. I think it's 20 years now. She's here at Carrick. She's actually in the living room. And she, when she was at university, trying to remember the Yeats words and the poem, she couldn't memorize them, but she found if she put them to music, then she did memorize them. And she's done wonderful concerts here at Carrick, here with various groups. Some of you watching have experienced Claire live performing this, and then she goes to other hotels around. She's performed in the USA and Australia, and with people like the Chieftains, etc. But rather waffle on, let's stick to the wonderful Claire Roach and get him off and bring you back. And this is Claire Roach and Stolen Child.
Stolen
has taken flight. To and fro we leap and chase the frothy bubbles while the world is full of troubles and is anxious in its sleep. Come away, human child, to the waters and the wild, with their fiery hold in hand. For the world's more full of weeping than you can understand. Where the wandering water gushes from the hills above Glencar in pools among the rushes that scarce could bathe a star, we seek for slumbering trout, and whispering in their ears give them unquiet dreams, leaning softly out from ferns that drop their tears
we go. Thank you very much, Claire. Excellent. Now, yes, we'll have an encore next year for that one. Brilliant. Thanks. That was wonderful. And there's comments in already. Hauntingly Beautiful by Terry Slack Hardwick. Davina there, beautiful Claire. And John Smith is having a bit of a clap there. And B. Smith, it's lovely to hear your sweet voice and the Faye harp string singing. So various other comments have come up. John Smith was saying about the tin and organ. I'm into overtime, but I hope I'll have time to give a wee tin and o story in a few minutes. Elves, I have to think about that if we can include that next week. Question here, Davina was saying about the race appeared after the fall of Atlantis. Again, that's a long answer to that one. I'm going to cover some of that next week in part 2 because I'm going to cover a lot regarding water next week as well. John Smith here, 250,000 miles of stone walls in New England, like in Ireland. Did the fairy folk build them? I bring this up quite often in other episodes of Nature Folklore. It's one thing I question a lot with cairns and stone circles. Is that why would the stone structures be more sacred than what was there before? Because obviously the stones have to be ripped up from the earth and they can't be replaced again. They won't regrow. Or of course, Ice Age rips up stones anyway and left a lot scattered. So a lot of those were used in building. But in a lot of cases, when these places are built, they've had to cut down trees, they've had to rip away the flowers and whatever's there. And what has happened with these ruins after thousands of years, the hawthorn comes up, cracks open the stone in the stone circle, and eventually the stones get buried by the plants and so forth. I tend to think the Sidhe are actually in that hawthorn and in the plants. There's a lot of stories about the Sidhe and the stones. But again, I think it's part of this fear-mongering, as I was saying earlier, that where stories were twisted around to say you're much safer within the stones of the church than you are outside of nature. So I think there's a twist on that. But I think that's all down to personal beliefs. But I suppose what, to me, in my mind, is the trees, the plants, and all that was here well before us humans started using our hands to build stuff with stones. So that's my view on that one. So then we've got, and John was saying about the scary fairy godmother. Again, the fear-mongering stories are the popular ones. You know, I always say that's why with Nature Folklore, if I had battle scenes and battle stories, the following I would have each week would be hundreds. And I see this with other streams where they're bringing in the old battle stories and that, and the following is enormous. But Nature Folklore, which is not told very much, it doesn't have a huge following because it's not actually in the scribes. The scribes, when they were employed, when they were sponsored in the medieval time, people that are sponsoring them, they wanted their legacy recorded. That was the important thing, not what the peasants were doing and the weather forecasting and all that. Anyway, there's Maria Kellick has come here. Thanks for the inspiring program. Going back to seeing what I missed early morning from the hills and poppies of California. So lovely to have you in board. So I better move on because I'm into overtime now. Anyway, I said W.B. Yeats, claiming I think he was the one of the leaders of the Celtic romance in the 19th century, and there's a bit of Celtic romance there. And I think it was the Celtic romance that shortened the name of these spirit entities in their various names to just calling them the Sidhe. I think that started up in the 19th century. So that's a shorthand for a lot of other names. And I'm going to talk a bit about that. Anyway, from the Stolen Child, the Changeling folk, there is a myth that the sons of bootleg poaching whiskey makers, it's them that got swapped. It was those boys that got swapped. And there's some lads there. They always seem to be looking after the stills. And there was always this sort of, again, it's fear-mongering, but it was always thought that when the fairies came to steal the healthy boys, it was from the poaching still makers. And again, this is the church bringing in the concept of sin, and the poaching and making that was all full of sin. So those were the children to be taken first. Again, propaganda stuff. Anyway, so to fool the Sidhe, the sons actually wore girl skirts. So this is it. The idea of these skirts was so when the Sidhe came along, oh, they're just little girls. We're not going to steal them. So that was they wore the sons of poaching makers would wear skirts to protect them from being snapped off by the Sidhe. And I got some more pictures of that. Some more poaching lads here, also wearing skirts, and some more lads here. So that was it. So they were protecting themselves from being taken off by the Sidhe, by the fairy folk. And so also as babies, the cribs, when they were babies, their cribs and cradles, they always had a poker kept across them, and also a Bridget's cross. So the poker was there as a sort of a warning to warn off the fairies taking them, and also the British cross was put there as a protection on the blankets, as ways and means of stopping the fairies taking away the babies. So that's all, as I say, that's all part of the fear-mongering stories of the Sidhe that I feel. Anyway, the fearful fairy storytelling suddenly becomes much more intense when we start talking about the descendants of the Tuatha De Danann. And even later than that, the Tuatha De Danann stories start talking of fallen angels, and the angels that are thrown out of heaven for not being pure enough, and but were almost wicked enough for hell. Again, fear-mongering story again from the old, twisting the old legends. So the new mission of these fallen angels was to be back amongst the humans. They had the task of protecting nature, and they would enforce wrath on those who abuse nature. And even with the Tuatha De Danann stories, we have their stories of them being fallen angels too. That got twisted from them arriving in sea, that they arrived from the sky, and they arrived in places in Leitrim, such as here, and regarded as modern storytelling of them says they arrive as fallen angels too. And so they're fallen quite near here, Kilronan as well. I haven't got pictures of this, the Slievenaran, the Iron Mountain, which is northeast of Drumshanbo. Sorry, I haven't got pictures of this. And that's about to become a national park as well, which is going to be fascinating. And of course, those Leitrim sites are very popular with UFO spotters. And excuse me for a moment, there's something I've got to do in order to get the rest. I say there's some storytelling coming up, and I forgot whilst that Claire was singing, I should have been dealing with this. And let's see if we can get away with this. Sorry, especially if we're running in overtime. It's I got to get more pictures up. That's what it is. Anyway, for even more scaremongering, the ultimate scaremongering must be the one Sidhe that we should cover, and let's get amongst the photographs here. Is the Banshee, of course. There you go. We have the Banshee, in case you're not familiar of the spelling. There you go. There's the Banshee there. The Keening Banshee arriving to take people to Tirnanog. So that word's coming up already. And also we have we've got stories of the White Sidhe horse riders taking the fallen and passing on to the west. Now I should have some photos on this. Some Tirnanog. There we go. We have stories of the white horses taking the people have fallen, people have passed on, taking them off west to the land of youth, the land of eternity, Tirnanog. I think we got another one. This is a famous picture, famous story. Bring that up another time of need. Anyway, in Scotland, she's the She's the Beanie, washerwoman. I think I've got a picture of her. There she is, and I'll get the thing up for you here. There we go. Where is she? Beanie. There we go. She's the washerwoman. We have washerwoman stories here in Ireland, of course. It arrived here, but in Scotland became the foundation of Morrigan stories, and especially in Ireland. And in Ireland, we get the stories of the Wúna Doida or Dagda. And now on the west coast of Scotland and Ireland, and this is where I was saying I got a little she story. I hope to have time, so I'm going to put a bit of this in, trying to get up the pictures here. These lovely little birds, the oyster catchers. You might have seen them, orange beaks up patrolling the edge of the sea. And what is said about them is, while they're patrolling, and they make a bit of a sound as well, is what they're doing is they're catching the spirits that have escaped from Tiddenog and trying to return back to the land. And of course, the oyster catchers there, when they see these spirits trying to come ashore, they call the white she to come out with their horses, come back to the beach and take these spirits back to Tiddenog again. So I think that's all I've got on Tiddenog today. We got the Lin She there. She's an enchanting, cruel, passionate, teasing fairy lover. I might talk about her in other nature folklore sessions, not today. And then we got the Underworld she people. They're said to support the farmers and their yields. And as I say, these are wild sanctuaries for the fate to roam. This is why my argument was with the stones. The stones are somehow, to me, blocking out the she. I'll talk more about this next week, but there they go. Don't touch those. You know, if you don't touch their little spaces there, then the farmers will still have good yields. But in Scotland, she were not so forgiven as they seem to be in Ireland. And she didn't, in the stories there, it seems they didn't like the farmers much in Scotland. So you got the gilly, come back, come back, come back. No, sorry, I got mouse problems again. No, it's not letting me go. There we go. That's it, the gilly do. Gilly do, she, and they would be amongst the trees. And if the farmers took away too much woodland to expand their crops, then as they started taking the trees away and the farmers entering into the woodlands, there were the gilly do she, and they would take the farmers away, never to be seen again. And but actually, I think that story is a Pictish story, because the Picts were said to be farming people, and the Gaels from Era Gael, they were originally tree people, Gaels. So I think the Gaels tend to think that she were their race. But I also, one I do love is the Cushee, which is the dog spirit, wolf spirit, fox spirit, and that's one that I like. And I'm going to add some more pictures here if you give me a minute or two that I haven't sorted out. Sluggish continuation here. Now, what do I need? I need some more pictures up because I had too many pictures. I'm only allowed a certain amount in the show. So I'm just going to bring some more so I can finish this off. And I'm being right. Sorry about this. Everything's gone sticky on me. The computer, the mouse, the rest of it. Anyway, I think I'll be okay now. As much as I love the she and the fairy stories, despite the fear mongering, and it's increasing through the establishment of the church, I'm personally not a believer, and this is, I think, with Davina, I should mention, I don't believe in the she being individual personalities. A lot of people have a strong belief in that. I believe it's more of a realm. And that is why I'm going to talk a lot about water next week, because water, when we pass on, it leaves our body. And to me, it rejoins the she world again. And we have to let go of all our individualism. Our memories, I feel, go through the water, but that's another subject. We're going to deal with that in a series in summer. However, when people we know and love pass away, that our memories of them, they last forever, don't they? We never stop thinking about these loved ones that have passed away. And the memories of our ancestors we've never met and that lived well before our time, for some reason, they seem to linger with us too. And when we go into places and we go to sites, do you feel this? It's as if the ancestors are there and all their memories flow back with us. And my feeling is, what better way is there to bring those memories alive through the memory of the medium of the Sidhe and the fairy realm? But preferably is fear-mongering storytelling to enter the Sidhe realm. So let's hope there's more respect instinctively within us, that we can wrap this all up into what I suppose what we know is, bring up the spelling here, so you know what I'm talking about. The Cridiu Sidhe, the fairy faith. And let's not forget the Sloch Sidhe, that's this one, the Sloan Sidhe, which is a touch of fairiness that's within us. The touch of fairiness that's within us. And that's what another one that's been twisted, because of the Sloan Sidhe, that's how I interpret it. But you get into the fear-mongering mode and you get into the church mode, that's retranslated again, saying that is the dead souls entering within us. And the church says that is the sin that comes and breeds within us. But I like to go back to what I think was the original, the lovely fairiness within us, which could be the source of our inspirations, imagination, and our ability to see things as cycles and spirals rather than as a linear. So there we have the Sluishi. So very important, I think, to have that one. So going back to considering the Sidhe mounds, where did they come from? Some of the human-built ancient stone cairns, they're built on these mounds, and so we call them Sidhe mounds. And I'm just trying to release this. Pictures, but it gets confusing, as most of these ancient stone cairns, they were well built before the Tour de Danann came along, but they seem to get linked to their stories a lot. Anyway, when the people today think of goddesses, they perhaps contemplate on anyway, I'm getting lost. There we go. There's people getting on a kayak mound, and I was showing this before. They contemplate on wombs, fertility. I'm going to put this as my background to finish this off. No, again, everything's gone sticky on me again. Oh dear. Sorry, everything's slow. It's just the computer's just, it's got too hot, I think, and sticky. There we go. We'll have this one. So when people today think of goddesses, I think they contemplate on wombs, fertility, and the seeding and birth of new life. And at this point, I'm going to, do we have time? Yeah, okay, I'll go with it. I never get my poems in. I always have them lined up and I never say them because, right, time's up. We've had everybody else. And anyway, I think I'll do this one of us if I can line myself up. Anyway, the quickening. These are now the days of the quickening, the flow that pushes the womb to birth, forming life from dark to light. These are now the days we turn over our archive of collective memories and birth our resolutions and affirmations of renewal. We hold new desires to be fulfilled. New poems are written, celebrating new life, withdrawing and planning maybe new recipes to try out to become healthier. But we've been calling on Breed, to engage these desires and prayers. And we've been making crosses and dolls and preparing food for visiting friends. Our thoughts of this time may be on healing, on what may have waned from us through the winter. So these new days after Imbolc, is patronage to our new ideas, our new callings, our new plans for the growing towards the new harvest season, and the new distribution of new voices of bards. They inspire hope in our hearts and trust in what we do. And that, my friends, is an excerpt from The Quickening. So I've got a few words in there, and there we go. Glenda, fascinating, John. Watch it over again. So much in it. Illustrations too, all very interesting. And oh my God, is that written by that fairy guy? I don't know what I had. I didn't take a quote. Fairy guy on YouTube. Anyway, you might have taken from something I said. I don't know what you're referring to there. Anyway, so Meet the Other Crowd. I will look it up. John Smith. Also, the theory that Gaelic was eliminated in Canada and Commonwealth to be replaced. I think that was everywhere. I think the Gaelic, definitely, John Smith. There are some stories because, of course, the Gaelic did come over. It's a whole big story of the clearances. They were really cruel, certainly as cruel as the famine. The famine hit Ireland, but they fought back in Scotland with the famine. But the clearance is another matter, where people were forced onto the boats over to Canada, and they took their language over with them. But they were learning English fast. They were learning things like words like tyranny, commonwealth, and all these other things. And sure enough, it was when they got over to Newfoundland, Cape Breton, places like that. Yes, they tried to take it out of them because they had the Wee Free Church, I suppose you would say. They had the Puritan Church trying to get this out, but it didn't happen. It kept alive. It's for another time. It's a big subject. It's big. But thanks for bringing that one up. Am I still alive? I'm still here. Yeah, I hope so. Right, there we go. Trevor knowledge. Oh, such radiance. I better get moving to the end. We're really going over. Right, as I say, you can subscribe if I take the comment to there. It is from there. And I got a new way, because some people say, oh, you go through Patreon and you have to go through PayPal. Well, I took the initiative to go for another one, perhaps a lot easier for some of you. Try this if you want to pay with a card. Buymeacoffee.com, Nature Folklore, €2 to help with the show and its upgrade. You can make one payment. That's the tip jar option. You can be a subscriber through that, but perhaps subscriptions through Patreon. Anyway, I better tell you what's coming up. What we got? We got part 2 of the She, and it'll be covering what I didn't do this week. There'll be a lot of emphasis on water, and just bring this mound up again, take myself out of it. So talk about more about water. What we got? There's things I haven't told, with obviously more about birth and some water with that. Talk about more about the fairy faith and how people look at that. And then after next week, we start a new series. It's a 5-part series of the tree season. And that starts off with an Om, back with an Om in relationship to trees. And well, we got a song from Cliff again from that one. Symbol language, how we use symbol language, and how that's influenced by the tree language. I'll go through that. And then there's a 2-part series, 6th of March, and also the following week, Us and Trees. What can we do? So this is going to be sort of practical, hands-on stuff. We've got some great guests with some various tree projects around Ireland. So it's one of the hands-on thing we can do that's very effective. A lot of people think, oh, subscribe to these big tree planting projects. What can you actually do with your small space around you? And then we'll finish off that season. There's small things you can do. Well, I'll talk about those, how we can increase the native tree coverage. There's one thing I said on Facebook, with the truckers all lining up. I said, wouldn't it be nice if we could all have a convoy of all our little patches of ground? And if we had a convoy of that and made of woodland, That would be quite something. Or food, of course, or a mixture, or permaculture with food forests, a whole lot. If our little bits connected together, rather than try to take over a whole stretch of land to do that. So I'll be coming up with all kinds of stuff through those weeks. 13th of March, and as well, we'll be covering us and trees. And then 20th of March, I can be concluding, and we'll talk about our tree sanctuaries and building up our tree sanctuaries. Now, I think I've done enough. That will be an intimate edition, of course, the tree sanctuary one. How do you find a tree sanctuary? Where's your tree sanctuary for contemplation? Are you making one? Because by this time, I'm actually, we're moving away from Caracrory, and the tree sanctuary here, the tree labyrinth is the tree sanctuary here. So wherever we're going, we'll be working on a new tree sanctuary. So there'll be a new story from us on that as well. Anyway, comments before I say my farewells. Any Leatherhand? Yeah, it'd be nice to get him on sometime. There are times I highly recommend, and of course, we'll talk about him next week, because fairy stories, that is the ace man, isn't it, for the fairy stories? Even though he has a lot of churchy stuff in there, he has remarkable must-have, must-read books. Eddie Leatherhand, definitely the fairy man on that. And I will talk about him, make reference to him next week. Be lovely if he could be a guest, but he's so busy. I haven't had any success getting him yet. We'd have to have a whole show of him. I couldn't just have Lady Lenahan on for just 5-10 minutes, can I? So we've got to work this out. Thanks for the quickening poem, says Glenda. Yeah, Eddie Lenahan we'll talk about next week. But thank you anyway. Thank you. We had wonderful guests, Sandra Parker, Tony Cookson, Glenda Semino, and of course the lovely Claire Roach there with the Stolen Child. If you're watching this later, still keep making comments. I do look at the comments, and I do return from time to time through the week, because a lot of people watch this in the evening, the next day, and in the week. Click the bell icons, it'll let you know what's coming up, especially on YouTube. A lot of people say, I don't know what's coming up on the YouTube. Click the bell icon and you will each week. So it's I'll just say I trust you're going to have an absolutely fabulous week coming up. Thank you for staying with me for all the stutterings and all the stickiness of all that I've been going through today. Have a safe week full of lots of wonder, all the inspirations and enchantments that you can indulge in, especially with the she. So until next Sunday, play well. Thank you all for being here, and that's me for now. Bye-bye. Bye. That was fantastic.